Hello and welcome back to part 3 of the Kliff Chronicles. Prodigy. Now that we've covered the numerous places and points of interest, it is time to cover the several people of interest. The people of Kliff are without a doubt some of the highest profile individuals on the eastern seaboard of any town that the organization has placed on the observation list. Now let us begin. File name RK-PI-001. Codename Prodigy. Leslie Ruth Knowles. Date of birth April 12th, 1966. Mrs. Knowles spent most of her formative years in the St. Abbey's Refuge for Lost Souls. The St. Abbey's Refuge has already been cataloged in our files. For further information, see file AMPOI 1013. It seems Mrs. Knowles ended up here as a result of her birth mother not being mentally sound enough to remain in her care. She was then transferred to the care of St. Abbey's at the age of 3. How unfortunate. Approximately 7 years later, Mrs. Knowles was sent to a group home in Kliff. This was due to St. Abbey's Refuge being burned down that same year. For more information on this topic, please see Incident Report AMPOI 1013-J. Mrs. Knowles began attending schooling in Kliff and quickly advanced 2 academic levels. Mrs. Knowles has always been touted for her intelligence and ability to accomplish complex tasks. This allowed Mrs. Knowles to graduate earlier than her peers. During this time, Mrs. Knowles' known associates were as follows: Marcus Herring, Carl McNeely, Liam Winters, Oliver Wayward, Dennis Cathrich, Phoenix Goodwin, Philip Goodwin, and Phoebe Goodwin. It seems Mrs. Phoebe Goodwin and Mrs. Leslie Knowles have been domestic partners since high school. Further digging has concluded that they have been legally married since 1989. With this knowledge, we were confused to say the least, as they only refer to each other as roommates. It seems to be a running joke between the two, and the entire town of Kliff entertains this to this day. To keep our cover, myself and my agents will indulge this joke of theirs. Mrs. Knowles and Mrs. Goodwin are also the current legal guardians of Abigail Gail Goodwin, one of the Sack kids. Mrs. Knowles is of course the owner of Leslie's Soda Shop. For further information, see file RK-POI-001. With the ownership of this establishment and further magical studies by Mrs. Knowles, she's gained the attention of the Twilight Society, being invited to join the group alongside her partner Phoebe Goodwin. Analysis. Mrs. Knowles seems to be an upstanding citizen and renowned arcane researcher. With her association with the Twilight Society, she has access to vast arcane resources, possibly more than us. Mrs. Knowles is an incredible magic user, a very driven person. Standard threat. Assessment, Level 2 target. Possible Category 3 asset. Priority 3 anomaly. Addendum. During further research into Mrs. Knowles' past, it seems she's had previous contact with our organization. For more information, see Incident Report AMPOI 1013-J. Interview, Knowles, Leslie. Analysis update. With the new information learned from the file stated above, Leslie Knowles has been reassessed as a Level 2 target, possible Category 2 asset, Priority 2 anomaly. Analysis concluded.